close enough, huh? Good evening, everybody. My name's Bill, and I'm an alcoholic. It's 7:30, so I guess that means it's time to start the 7:30 meeting. You see how that works? You know, I'm getting pretty good at this stuff. I can even do that with one hand. I don't need two hands to count that far. Okay, if you all care to join me, we'll start off with a moment of silence, and we'll follow that up with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me serenity to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Okay, I've got the preamble to Alcoholics Anonymous. Sometimes it's referred to as the definition of Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, whatever you want to call it, this is how it reads. It says, Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So kind of following along with that idea of the primary purpose, that's why we get together here on Saturdays. I don't think I mentioned this is the Stairways group of Alcoholics Anonymous. We are an open group of Alcoholics Anonymous, and everybody's welcome to attend. You know, we believe that this way of life has benefits for everybody, not just the alcoholic. But we do like to get together on Saturdays to read and study the big book, ask and answer questions. So as we go through this, you know, if something comes up, you know, get my attention somehow, stop me, whatever. I'm not saying that I have all the answers by any means, but we got a lot of people sitting in a room, and maybe we can get you an answer. You know, generally how we start this, you know, is by reading how it works. What I was told a long time ago, and I started to do it, and it started to work for me, was I was told to bring my big book with me to every meeting I go to. And they said, read along with how it works at the start of every meeting. And you know, as I think about it, I can't think of any meeting that I go to where they do not read how it works. You know, some of the meetings, they'll read more about alcoholism in addition to how it works. Some of them don't. You know, some of them read the promises at the beginning of the meeting. Some read the promises at the end of the meeting. But everyone seems to read how it works at the beginning of the meeting. And so once I started doing that, you know, it got me a little bit more focused as to what was going on. And I actually started to see stuff in how it works that I had never noticed before, you know. I don't know how they do this, you know. I keep this book in my car with me. It goes everywhere. I keep the car locked, but every week the book is changing. You know, I don't know how they get in there and change this stuff, but every time I open up these pages, something's different jumping out at me. Anyhow, we encourage you to do the same thing. You know, bring your big book with you to a meeting, to every meeting you go to. And when they start to read this, open up your book and read along with it, you know, because that's the other problem I had for years. I go into these meetings, and, you know, like I'm doing now, we're getting some of the business stuff out of the way. You know, we say the prayers, read how it works, read this, read that. You know, and I wasn't paying attention to all this stuff because I was thinking the meeting didn't start, you know. The meeting didn't start till you got all that stuff out of the way. But in actuality, the meeting started when they said it started with that moment of silence and the prayer, you know. And the reason why these groups read this stuff, I found out, is because it is worthwhile and they want us to gain something from it, you know. So what I'm going to do is what we usually do in this group is ask somebody to volunteer to read how it works for us tonight. And I got a gentleman back there that's going to do it. And if you want to follow along, I hope you do. You'll find it on page 58. You know, we're a big book group, so we don't hand out the sheets. We work right out of the book. And with that being said, it's all yours. Hey, Keith.
Really haven't seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program, usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They some of these we won't. We thought we could find an easier, softer way. But we cannot. All the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result is nil when we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, bathrooms, power. God help it is too much for us. There is one who has all power, that one is God, and you find him now. Have measured avail us nothing. We stood the turning point. Next is protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1. We admitted we were powerless for alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood it. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We are entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. Humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. Sought in prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaim, "What an order! I can't go through with this." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. Principles we have set down are guides. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after made clear 3 early ideas. A, that we were alcoholics could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God will
stop. Okay, thanks, Keith. The first Sunday of the month is when we have our business meetings.
Saturday.
Yes, you're right. Saturday. We meet on Saturdays, don't we? Thank you. See what all that drinking does is it destroys brain cells, you know. All right, the first Saturday of the month is when we have our business meeting, and we had it last week. And what was decided was we're going to try and change something a little bit, and rather than waiting till the end of the meeting to pass around the baskets, we're going to start doing it at the beginning of the meeting. So we'll do that now. We do have a 7th tradition in AA, which states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting. So we're going to send the baskets around, and if you guys have something you could contribute, that would be great. If you don't, that's okay too, you know, because there are no dues or fees for this. So as that gets started, we'll start taking a look at the book. We'll get that one going that way, I guess.
Went around already, but
All right, well, you know, maybe it made its way around a little early. If somebody missed it, if they want to contribute, that's fine. Yeah. All right, before we pick up where we left off last week, I've been telling you guys that, you know, I learned through repetition, and I suppose if you've been coming here since we got this started, it's getting to be rather repetitious now, but maybe some of you hadn't heard this before. I was going to take you to a couple different places in the book to get started, because, you know, I used to think that if I could only figure out what the problem was, I could go in, take out that bad part, replace it, and fix it, and be on my way, you know, and I wouldn't have to go through all this stuff, because, you know, I was able to look up on a wall, read the steps, and say, hey, there's work involved with that. I don't want to do any of that stuff, you know. So I thought AA was all about alcohol and drinking and how not to drink or how to drink or whatever, but, you know, I found out it's not really that. So real quick, if you would, open up your book to page 64. And on the top of page 64, there's a paragraph there that continues over from the bottom of page 63. It's not a complete paragraph, but if you count down from the top of the page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, on the right-hand side of the paragraph, there's a sentence. And this sentence reads, liquor was but a symptom. Okay? So, it's saying here that the booze was only a symptom of the problem. And like I've said to you before, it doesn't really matter which form the booze took, which form your liquor took, whether you smoked your liquor, drank your liquor, ate your liquor, shot your liquor, however you acquired your liquor, the liquor's not the problem. It's only a symptom of the problem, okay? So now, if you would, go to page 23 for a second. And on page 23, there's another sentence I want you to look at. And this is in the first complete paragraph on the page, okay? So if you count down from the top of this first complete paragraph, you come down 3 lines. And again, on the right-hand side of the page, there's a sentence that starts off with the word therefore. You guys all find that? This sentence reads, therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. Okay, so here they're telling us that our problem is in our mind. And on page 64, they're telling us that liquor is just a symptom of the problem. Okay? Yeah, hang on just a second, Gerald. And the other thing I want to point out here is that it does use the word mind, okay, which is different than our brains. Okay, and that's what I've been saying to you as we're going along through this thing too. A brain is just another organ of the body, right? But our mind is someplace where our consciousness is. It's where our thoughts develop. It's where we exist and all this other stuff. So, what we'll find as we go through this is that it is a thinking disease, if you will, and it's all about the thought and everything. Gerald, you had your hand up.
I think you answered the question, I think, because I know I can walk, see, smell, and think, so I wondered, my mind was all right, but when you say it's the way I what?
It's the essence of our being, if you will. It's where we are. It's where we define ourselves in our mind, who we are or what we are. Okay.
So we don't process. Yeah. You're telling me I don't process information that way.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that right now. Where we left off last week, I've got my bookmark in between pages 26 and 27. And here on these pages, we're going to start hearing from another doctor. Yes, Rich?
I don't know if it was the right question, but I have to ask if there's no question. It was a stupid question. I'm understanding that it's the alcohol and the drugs or whatever, drank it or shot it or sniffed it or poured it in our hair was just a symptom. Covering my childhood of things that happened that my mind stays as, like, I'm going to call it resentment.
I don't know if it was your childhood or what it was, but all the book is telling us is, I thought that the booze was the problem. I thought the booze in and of itself was the problem, okay? Because I started out drinking beer when I was little. Well, actually, the first time I ever got drunk was at a friend's bar mitzvah, and I was drinking screwdrivers. But later on, as I got a little older, I was drinking beer. And then I went into the Air Force, and, the beer was upsetting my stomach. So I said the beer was upsetting my stomach, so I switched over and started drinking whiskey. In college, I drank Southern Comfort. And then I went over and I started drinking rum. I was switching and thinking, that these different things would have a different effect. With the rum, I had all visions of grandiosity. In my mind, I was a guy like Errol Flynn you see in the old pirate movies, and all the pirates drank rum. So this is where I was. And I thought that drinking was the problem. But drinking is not the problem, okay? Drinking is only a symptom of the problem, okay? And what's behind that, the steps will allow us, as we go through the steps will bring out all this stuff, okay? But to show you right off the bat, so you're not confused like I was confused, all right? The booze is not the problem, okay? And this is called Alcoholics Anonymous, and really alcohol has very little to do with this program. I mean, if you look up there on a wall where we have the 12 steps listed, step 1 is the only one that mentions the word alcohol, all right? The rest is all about something else. So it says here in the book on page 23 that our main problem is in our mind, Okay, so if we go back here to pages 26 and 27 and start looking at where we left off last week, we start to hear from another doctor. Okay, we've already heard from Dr. Silkworth in the beginning of the book in the doctor's opinion. And Silkworth told us that he looked at this thing and recognized it as a disease. He was the first one to actually see it as being a disease. And he said that we have this allergy of the body, that we don't react the way normal people do, okay? But he also said we have this obsession of the mind. He called it a two-part disease. And that obsession is driving us constantly. Here we see another doctor on these pages, and this is Dr. Carl Jung. Okay, his name is mentioned here on page 26. And at the top of page 26, they start talking about a certain American businessman. Okay, this American businessman they're talking about is Roland Hazard. Okay, and how he comes into play here. He was a friend of Bill W. years back as well, but Ebby Thatcher, who we learned about when we went through Bill's story. Ebby is the fella that called Bill up, and Bill said, yeah, come on over, sit down. And Bill figured we're going to get drunk, and his gin is going to outlast this. And Ebby says to him, I got religion, and Bill says, oh, here we go. Anyway, Roland Hazard is the guy that brought the message to Ebby Thatcher. Ebby Thatcher brought it to Bill. Okay, so that's how Ebby's getting involved in all this. But Roland, he came from a very wealthy family, and he had a lot of money available to him. He could buy all the treatments that were available at that time. And what he did was, after going through and seeing some of the psychiatrists in this country, as I understand it, the book says the best known American psychiatrist, I understood that to be Sigmund Freud and Adler. I can't think of Adler's first name at the moment. But and after that didn't work for him, he went over to Europe and sought out Carl Jung. Okay, so we start looking at this, and Roland, after working with Jung, Roland was actually over there for a year working with Jung. And Roland figures, okay, after a year, I got it. And it says here on page 26 in the middle, above all, he believed he had acquired such a profound knowledge of the inner workings of his mind and its hidden springs that relapse was unthinkable. Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time. Okay, and it says, more baffling still, he could give himself no satisfactory explanation why. This is right in the middle of page 26. So what ends up happening is Roland ends up going back to see Carl Jung. And so, I want to start on page 27 and pick up from there. I know we looked at some of this last week, but I just want to go over it again. So if we start on page 27 and start with this first complete paragraph on page 27, okay? It says, there's a line just prior to this. Let's start with the paragraph at the bottom of page 26. It starts off here, but this man still lives and is a free man. He does not need a bodyguard, nor is he confined. He can go anywhere on this earth other free men go without disaster, provided he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. Okay, provided he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. Okay, what they're talking about here is a new way of living. Okay, and we're going to go on and see what happens. The provided, that's a big long word for if. If he does this, then that'll happen for him. Okay, going on here on page 27, it says, some of our alcoholic readers may think they can do without spiritual help. Let us tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with his doctor. Okay, it says, the doctor said, and this is Dr. Jung talking to Roland Hazard. Dr. Jung says, you have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. I have never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you. Okay, so here Jung is saying to Hazard, you got an alcoholic mind. And I've never seen anybody recover that has an alcoholic mind. And this goes kind of back to what Dr. Silkworth was talking about, where he started to describe it. He didn't say that, he didn't use the words having an alcoholic mind, but he was describing the same situation, okay? And so back here on page 27, it says, a friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. And think of that for a second. I'm sure one or two of you have been in jail. You know, you're probably not very good alcoholics if you haven't. That's not true. But I mean, I know I've been in jail, okay, as a result of drinking. And when I went in there and they closed this door and I threw that lock across, you know, it makes a big clunk, you know, a big noise. And that's what I envision going on here when he says the gates of hell closed on him with a clang. I hear that noise of that mechanism going over. So Roland, it goes on here, it says, he said to the doctor, "Is there no exception?" "Yes," replied the doctor, "there is. Exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. Okay. Here and there, once in a while. All right, this is what Dr. Young is telling him. Here and there, you know, once in a while, what happens? Something happens. It's not very frequent, not very often. Okay. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have what are called vital spiritual experiences. To me, these occurrences are phenomena. Okay, so Dr. Young is saying these vital spiritual experiences that these alcoholics are a phenomenon to him. What the word phenomenon means is it's unexplainable. It happens, but he can't tell you why it happens. He can't tell you how it happens, but he knows that it happens. Okay? And he goes on to describe what these vital spiritual experiences are. He says, they appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Okay. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. Okay? So the ideas that we have, he's saying the guys that have recovered, you know, he doesn't know how it happens, but here's what happens to them. They get rid of all their old ideas. They get rid of all their old emotions. They get rid of that old thought process that they had, and they replace it with something new. Now, if we go back and look at the doctor's opinion, Dr. Silkworth tells us the same thing. Turn your book over. I've got a 4th edition. So in the 4th edition, the Roman numerals pages in the beginning of the book are different from a 3rd edition. So if you get a 3rd edition, you're going to have to look a few pages left or right of where I'm going to tell you to go. But in the 4th edition, we want to look at Roman numeral 29. That's XXIX. Okay? And here, Dr. Silkworth, he starts off on the bottom of Roman numeral 28. And does everybody catch up with me? Is everybody in the right spot? You know, we good to go? If you look down the bottom of the page, Roman numeral 28, Dr. Silkworth says, men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that, while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontent unless they can again experience a sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks. Drinks they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomena of craving develops. Now see here's Dr. Silkworth is talking about a phenomena of craving, all right? He knows that this craving thing exists, but again, he can't explain it. Why? You know, Young can't explain this spiritual thing, right? So Silkworth says, and the phenomena of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, with the firm resolution not to drink again. He says, this is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. All right? This is Dr. Silkworth saying this. I'm going to read this one more time. We'll go back to page 27 and look and compare these things for a second. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. Let's go, keep your finger there because we're going to go back to that page in a minute. But let's go back over to page 27. And it says, you have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. This is repeated over and over again. I have never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you. Young saying that. Silkworth is saying, unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. Okay, 2 different doctors telling us the same thing, that something's going on here, and we don't understand it, and we can't help you. You know, we don't know how to help you. So if you go on reading Silkworth, he says, on the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol. The only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. Okay, if we go back to page 27 again, what does it say over here? On the top of page 27, the last part of that sentence is, provided he remain willing to maintain a certain simple attitude, following the rules that Silkworth was talking about. They go about having this vital spiritual experience that Jung calls it. Silkworth calls it a vital psychic change. They're talking about the same thing, using different words, okay? Both doctors are telling us the same thing has to happen, you know? Going back to on page 27 now, to Jung talking to Roland Hazard, he says, they appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. In fact, I've been trying to produce some such emotional rearrangement within you. With many individuals, the methods which I employed are successful, but I have never been successful with an alcoholic of your description. All right? Here, Dr. Jung is saying to him, you know, I've used this stuff and gotten some success with other people, but somebody with the mind of a chronic alcoholic, I have never been successful. Here's what has to happen. I can't make it happen. That's what the doctor's telling us. The other doctor's saying the same thing. We have to have this psychic change. They don't know how to bring it about, you know. So where does that leave us, you know? It goes on here on the bottom of page 27. It says, upon hearing this, our friend was somewhat relieved, for he reflected that, after all, he was a good church member. This hope, however, was destroyed by the doctors telling him that while his religious convictions were very good, in his case, they did not spell the necessary vital spiritual experience. You guys understand the meaning of the words necessary? Vital. Okay? Necessary has to happen. All right? Vital. It's important. All right? We have to have this spiritual experience. All right? Jung recognized this, but he didn't know how to make it happen. All right? And that's a problem that we face. Turn the page to page 28. And that's what it says right here at the top of page 28. It says, here was the terrible dilemma in which our friend found himself when he had the extraordinary experience which, as we have already told you, made him a free man. You know, a terrible dilemma. You know, think about that. If you knew coming in here, think about where you're at right now, what's going through your head. Me, I came around here for 8 years, relapsing the whole time, back and forth, and you know, and that's the dilemma I'm in. You folks are telling me that I got to stop drinking. And I'm telling you, I can't stop drinking. And they say, yeah, but you gotta. And I'm saying, I can't. And they're saying, if you don't, you're going to die. I said, yeah, but I can't stop. How do I do that? You know, help me. You know, I went through 4 different treatments. You know, all the good nurses and doctors and counselors, none of them were able to fix me. You know, the last time I got involved with my company's EAP program, I asked them. I called them up on the phone and said, hey, I got a drinking problem. Can you help me? Can you fix me? The lady on the other end of the phone said, sure, we can do that. We get good results. So I thought I was in like Flynn, you know. Well, it turns out I went through that program twice too. You know, so they didn't do such a good job of fixing me. Okay, so here, it's a dilemma we face. How do we do this? We have to stop, but we don't know how. The doctors can't bring it about on us. They don't know how to make it happen. All right, so here we go on page 28. It says, we, in our turn, sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. Anybody ever gone swimming and swallow a lungful of water? You know, how uncomfortable that makes you feel. You go underwater and you expect to get air and you end up with water and you start coughing and choking and gagging. You know, when that happens, you're scrambling to do anything. And that's what these guys are doing. You know, with the enthusiasm of a man drowning, they're reaching out, you know, desperation of drowning men. It says, yeah, what seemed at first as a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. A new life has been given us, or if you prefer, a design for living that really works. Okay? And you notice they put that in quotes, a design for living. All right? This is not something that we do for an hour a day in a meeting. All right? This is something that we apply in our lives. Keith read to us how it works tonight, you know? And in there it says, you know, I lost my spot, you know. It says, you know, step 12, there it is, you know, to practice these principles in all our affairs. Okay? We're going to practice these principles in all our affairs. This is going to become a way of life for us. We've got to do this constantly. You know, one of the schools my job sent me to one time, they started talking about habits. They wanted us to develop these habits. All right? They wanted us to develop new habits. And what I remember them telling us was that it takes somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 9 months to develop a habit. All right? But they told me once that habit is developed, it's virtually impossible to break. Now, I got to tell you, I drank for over 30 years. Okay? So I had this mindset going on. That's pretty set in stone. You know, it's long-standing. And that was a habit that was there for a long, long time. And it's virtually impossible to break. And the obsession is driving me. And I'm coming in, you guys telling me I got to stop drinking. And I keep saying I can't, and all this stuff, you know. So what has to happen is something has to change. I have to get this psychic experience, this psychic change that these guys are talking about. And it's going to become a way of life. We got to do this all the time. Okay, going on here on page 28, it says, the distinguished American psychologist William James, in his book, Varieties of a Religious Experience, indicates a multitude of ways in which men have discovered God. Okay, there's a lot of different ways to finding God. It says, we have no desire to convince anyone that there is only one way by which faith can be acquired. Okay, that's not what we're here for. We don't care how you come about it. If you think back to when Abby said to Bill in his kitchen, I've got religion. Bill says, oh, here we go, right? I was talking about that. You know, Bill thinks, well, you know, I got enough gin stashed about the house. My gin's going to outlast his ranting, right? What's the first thought Bill had? You know, yeah. Bill wanted nothing to do with this religion thing. And these guys are saying the same thing. You know, Ebby said to Bill, why don't you come up with your own conception of God? And here, they're saying the same thing to us. We have no desire to convince anyone that there's only one way. Why don't you come up with your own way, your own understanding of God? Okay? It goes on here, if what we have learned and felt and seen means anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever our race, creed, or color, are the children of a living creator. See, creator is capitalized. All right? They're talking about God here. A living creator with whom we may form a relationship upon simple and understandable terms. Simple and understandable terms. Caveat here. As soon as we are willing and honest enough to try. That's, you know, previous page, top of the page, provided he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. This willingness thing is going to keep showing up again, over and over. Again, it's a common theme throughout the book. We have to be willing. You know, I've heard it said in these rooms for years that this is a program for people who want it, not necessarily for people that need it. There are a lot of people out there in this world that have problems with drugs and alcohol. All right, they need something like this, but you look around the room, this building is not packed tonight. We got empty seats. So obviously they don't necessarily want it, okay? We're showing up here, we want this stuff. And you know, myself, I'm a real good alcoholic. I'm resistant, I'm defiant, I'm obstinate, I'm stubborn. And when you tell me to do this, I'm going to tell you to do that. And you know, and that's where I was. And I wasn't willing for years to do this stuff. You know, and that's when I started to become convinced that, like what Keith read and how it works, I started to believe that I was one of those people that was constitutionally incapable of getting this stuff. Turns out I wasn't. I was in that other group of people, the ones that were not willing to give themselves to this simple program. All right? And that's what it says. As soon as we are willing and honest enough to try, we can reach out and form this understanding with God. You know, God as I understand him. Yes, Gerald?
Yeah. You know, I can only talk about me, you know? And this, I think, is my major problem. I'm willing, but it's the maintaining to continue to have this simple. It's the maintenance of it. You know, for time, my willingness,
Yeah.
you know?
Like the roller coaster. Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I want to do what I want to do today, you know? And this is where, if I may venture to say, most of us have no problem. You know what I mean? How much are you willing? I'm willing to do 50% today. I don't want to do 5%, you know? I just want to put that out.
Yeah, well, that's why I was saying before, I'm obstinate and stubborn, and like I said, I had developed this habit over 30 years of drinking, and and yeah, I'm not willing all the time to do it, man. It takes work and it takes effort. If I don't do it though, what's my alternative? Yeah, yes.
Yeah, this is great because he just kind of asked or answered the question that I was feeling the same way because you know me well, and a lot of people start to know me here. My willingness isn't what it used to be, and it's up and down. Like one morning I can wake up because of the economy and no job and depression. Willing tonight and tomorrow morning, well, I'm not going to project that, but like this morning I was like, who shot, or the other day I was like, I wasn't 110%. And I wanted to know, and I know if I'll just come here and show up, even if I'm sleepy, I'm hoping that the willingness will get stronger and stronger and continue showing up. And then it may just take me longer. When my willingness drops in and out too, he did that roller coaster thing. I was like, holy cow, that's me all the way.
I was at a meeting this afternoon.
There's answers and there's, and I guess I can answer for myself by just saying, the more I come, the more I get at I like to sit like 30 nights.
Yeah.
And I'm learning those things because the first time around, I learned those things.
Yeah.
I
Well,
got out of the 30 nights already.
yeah. I was at a meeting this afternoon, and they were talking about some stuff, and this one person was talking, about what they were going through prior to getting in here when they came in, and he says, "You mean there's a power greater than me?" It's that. So yeah. And I had this attitude too. I had this attitude that I could fix everything, and that's what I was told by my parents growing up. I can do anything I put my mind to it. And so that's how I attacked this problem too, but it wasn't working, and so when you come in here and I'm trying to do that and everything, and, I wasn't willing to get away from that. It took a lot of pain for me to change my mind, but this is what the book says. It says, a creator with whom we may form a relationship upon simple and understandable terms as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try. Okay, so all we got to be willing. We reach out to him, and he's there for us. Okay, it says, going on in the book, it says, those having religious affiliations will find here nothing disturbing to their beliefs or ceremonies. There is no friction among us over such matters. Okay. We think it no concern of ours what religious bodies our members identify themselves with as individuals. This should be an entirely personal affair which each one decides for himself in the light of past associations or his present choice. Not all of us join religious bodies, but most of us favor such memberships. In the following chapter, there appears an explanation of alcoholism, as we understand it, then a chapter addressed to the agnostic. Many who once were in this class are now among our members. Okay, so they're telling us, just like Bill, okay? Ebby came in and said to Bill, and Bill says, no way, I don't want nothing to do with that. And saying a lot of people the same way. They came in here, they had this agnostic belief, had nothing to do with God, didn't want nothing to do with God. They're saying they've come around. They're now members of Alcoholics Anonymous and living this design for living that really works. Okay? It says, surprisingly enough, we find such convictions no great obstacle to a spiritual experience. So that is kind of surprising. You would think that a guy or a girl who's, an agnostic and doesn't believe that there is this being or power out there, they're saying it's not a hindrance. Do what we tell you to do. Follow these directions, and you'll have this experience anyway. All right? Now look here. I love this sentence. This is one of my favorite sentences in the book. Okay? It says, further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we recovered. Okay? And why I love this sentence so much, again, going back to my history of in and out, back and forth. I come into these meetings and I listen to you guys. And you guys say to me, and like I told you, I'm stubborn, obstinate, defiant, and all those other good things. You guys say to me, listen, we're going to suggest that you do certain things. And the first thing I hear is, suggest? There's the loophole. Suggest means I don't have to do it, all right? I ain't going to do it. I don't want to do it. There's no way you're going to get me to do it, And just like Rich was saying, I'm comfortable here sitting in my dirty diaper. I'm going to let the stuff ooze out the sides and the smell waft up because, this, and there's no way no. But that's not what this sentence says. This says directions, and that's a different terminology, Here, let's go look at the first paragraph in chapter 4 for a second. It's on page 44, okay? Chapter 4 is a week or two away. Hang on just a second, Teddy. Okay? This first paragraph here, it reads, in the preceding chapters, you have learned something of alcoholism. We hope we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic.
44?
Page 44. Beginning of chapter 4, we agnostics.
Yeah.
You find it? This very first paragraph on the page. Okay, I'm halfway through the paragraph. It says, if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably alcoholic. If that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. Okay? And that's the same thing that Dr. Young told us. That's the same thing that Dr. Silkworth told us. That there was the medical profession telling us they didn't know how to fix our problem, but here's what had to happen. Okay? These folks, this first 100 who put this book together, if you look at the forward to the first edition, which is up in the beginning of the book, we looked at this several weeks ago. It says, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And to show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. Okay, now going back to that direction thing. Here they're telling me, if I'm as alcoholic as these folks were, if I've got this alcoholic mentality, medical science is not going to be able to fix me. I started to believe that after numerous times in treatment, okay? And they're telling me I need to have this spiritual experience, this spiritual awakening. What they're suggesting to me, I have since learned, okay? I didn't realize this at the time. They're not suggesting that I do this or don't do this. What they're saying is I have to have the spiritual awakening. If I do not know how to make it come about, we suggest you try the way we did it to make it come about. If you got another way to make it happen, that's great. Go for it. Do it that way. But if you don't, and you're going to do it our way, there are specific directions that you have to follow. We've got a whole book listed here. We'll tell you what they are. We're going to spell them all out for you as we go through. Yes, Ted?
What, that sentence on 29, right after you said, further on, clear-cut directions are given shown how we recover?
Yep.
There are followed by 42 personal experiences.
Yes.
Regarding to that.
What's your question? What?
You wanted to know what the 42 stories were.
Oh,
42 personal experiences.
yeah, those are all the stories at the end of the book. Okay? Not at the end of the book. Once again, you go in and most people seem to think that the big book only goes from page 1 to 164. And that's what I hear all the time. Read up to page 164, this, that, or the other. Tell you what, Teddy, do me a favor. Open your book up to page 112 and read the first 3 words on that page. Nothing more, nothing less. Read this book, okay? That's what it says right there. It doesn't say read up to page 164 and stop, okay? They have, for a reason, put down these 42 personal experiences. Okay, we've read one of the personal experiences already, if you will. We've read Bill's story, okay? We've seen what Bill went through, how Bill was resistant, and how Bill drank and everything, and what caused him to come about and change his mind and change his attitude, where Bill became willing to start doing this stuff. All they're doing is giving us more examples in the back, you know. Maybe you don't relate real well to Bill. Maybe there's another story in the back that you will. Maybe you're having trouble seeing something or understanding something or doing something. Read the stuff in the back. And surprisingly enough, there's a lot of good stuff back there. All right? A lot of good directions. I mean, in the back there, they tell us how to deal with resentments. You know, when we get that far, I'll show you where that page is. I won't go there tonight, but I mean, there's good information back there. Okay? So, and that's what it says in the next sentence. You stop reading. It is in the very next sentence. It says, each individual in the personal stories describes in his own language and form and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. Okay? They're trying to show us what they went through to establish this relationship with God. Because, once again, this is a God of your own understanding. All right? What we're telling you is you're going to have this psychic change. You're going to have this vital spiritual experience. That's these people's experience in life, going through this, after fighting this and battling it for years. Here we sit 70 years after this book was written, and guess what? It seems to be working. They started out, when they wrote the book, they said we're 100 men and women. There are several million of us who have recovered now around the world, all right? There's something to this, you know, so we may want to pay attention to it. It says, these give a fair cross-section of our membership and a clear-cut idea of what has actually happened in their lives, okay? What's going on, what they did, how they brought this psychic change about. It says, we hope no one will consider these self-revealing accounts in bad taste. Our hope is that many alcoholic men and women, desperately in need, will see these pages as we believe that it is only by fully disclosing ourselves and our problems that they will be persuaded to say, yes, I'm one of them too. I must have this thing. All right? Yes, I'm just like you guys who wrote this book. I think the way you guys thought. I feel the way you guys felt. I'm just like you. And you're telling me you did this and it worked? You were able to stop drinking by doing this? Does that mean if I'm just like you and I do what you did, I'll be able to stop? Yes, that's what that means. That's why they put this here for us.
You like pasta? I like pasta. Go to a restaurant that's served with pasta.
Yeah. Yeah, you used a perfect word there. It's simple. That's all over the place. I heard people saying that for years. You know what? I can complicate the shit out of anything. My mind races all the time. You think I talk fast. My mouth is only going about 1 mile an hour as I'm saying all this stuff, but my brain, you know, it's going 100 miles an hour. I'm reading halfway down 2 more pages. I'm thinking about what I'm doing next Tuesday. You know, I'm all over the place, you know. And so, yeah, you know, so I found out, you know, I was at a big book meeting several years ago. I was in a place called Cleveland House. It's a 3-quarter-way house down in Hollywood. And we're going through this and reading it. And, you know, when it got time to share in a meeting, I stuck my hand up and said, hey, can somebody explain to me how a book that was published 30 years before I was born can describe me so exact, describe me to a T? You know, it's because we all are the same. You know, there's nothing different. The only thing different is the details. You know, when I was homeless, I was in Connecticut in winter in the snow. If you were homeless down here in Miami, you probably weren't exposed to the snow. But guess what? You were still homeless, you know? So you had rain, yeah, okay, you know. But I mean, that's the way it goes. You know, they're different. It's just the details. The feelings are the same. The thought process is the same. And therefore, the process that corrects that and gets us to this new way of living is the same too. And they have given us, further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we have recovered. All right? And to give you a little hope before we end, because we've got a couple more minutes, but let's jump way ahead in the book for a second. Let's go look on page 85. Okay, here on page 85, down towards the bottom, okay, it's this last complete paragraph on the bottom of page 85, not the one that starts saying step 11, the one right above it, okay? Here, we're looking at step 10. All right, and I know we're not talking about step 10 just yet, but in this paragraph, let's read what it says. It says, much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from him who has all knowledge and power. If we have carefully followed directions, we have begun to sense the flow of His Spirit into us. Okay? So the doctors are telling us we have to have this vital spiritual experience, this psychic change. They tell us further on, clear-cut directions are given, telling us what we have to do to make it come about. If you guys know another method of making it come about, go for it. If you don't know another method of making it come about, and you want to try the method of Alcoholics Anonymous, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is laid out in this big book here. Specific directions are given showing how we have recovered. So now you go all the way down towards the other end of the steps, and we get into step 10, and they tell us, if we have carefully followed those directions, okay, all the directions they've written down for us, if we carefully follow those things, all right, not pick and choose and not do some over here because I like it and I'm not doing that one because I don't like it and all this. If we have followed the directions carefully, what does it say? It says, we have begun the sense of the flow of His Spirit into us. We're starting to approach that connection with God, the one that they tell us we have to overcome this drinking problem. All right, we're going to see in the next couple of pages where it tells us it solved all our problems. Okay, so it's not. Remember, liquor was just a symptom of the problem. It's not the problem itself. And it's designed for living that they're going to give us. If we follow these directions, it will come about. Here's what I can tell you about me. Like I said, I started coming to AA in 1995. In 2003 was the last time I had a drink. That's 8 years. In and out, back and forth. I was not following any of these directions those first 8 years. There were a couple times I had put together a year without drinking. You know, I at that meeting I was at earlier today, there was a lady said, you know, she's just not willing anymore. She hasn't been coming to the meetings. She says she's got to get back in this mode because she knows what will happen to her if she doesn't. And so she's going to put an effort in to make it to more than one meeting every 2 months. You know, but she's not feeling the willingness. She's not having it, you know. And so she has to get back in here and form that relationship with God again. She has to be willing to do this stuff. You know, I've heard people tell me before that, you know, people who don't go to meetings don't get to hear about people who don't go to meetings. You know, it's one of those sayings that we hear around here. It doesn't make sense the first time you hear it, but basically that is true. So we have to be willing to follow these directions. And they are guaranteeing us, if we follow these directions, we're going to have this change come about in us. I guess it's getting close towards the end of the meeting, so I'll stop there. And next week we'll start up with chapter 3, which is entitled More About Alcoholism. Yes, Jerry?
Good point. I found out about going to meetings is like I related to food, to drink. You know, of course, but this is on a mental thing, spiritual thing, so to speak. I need drink every day.
Mm-hmm.
I drank some drink yesterday,
Yeah.
but my quench was thirst yesterday.
Yeah.
My thirst was quenched. My thirst was quenched yesterday. Now today, I'm thirsty again. I need some more drink.
Exactly.
You know, and food, you know. However, because this is on the mental thing and spiritual, I cannot necessarily sense that desire as much as I can sense that physical food or quenching thirst, you know. So, but I need to be aware. I need to be reminded. This is why I need the support group.
Yeah.
So I need the sponsor. Hey, you're falling off the barometer here. What's
Yep.
going on? You know. I need a safe house, a safe whatever. It's very important. I have a little friend right now, and she swear blind that I don't need all these, and I just have to sit back because I can't tell her.
No?
I just make her go, and then I'll run her thing, and when she begins to say, look, these is one of the reasons. Yeah, it's amazing, man. I should see me and her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that helps to pull me up. You having at least a meeting a day. Yeah, at least, and I keep it like that. Now I miss about sometimes 2 meetings a week, but I don't go less than that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's important to me. Sometimes I don't feel like I need it, but I can't go according to how I feel.
Yep.
Because that's not the scale that I used to. What I do with my physical, whatever. It's interesting. So
Yeah, there's, you know, along those lines, there's only 3 days that we actually deal with. You know, there's yesterday, there's tomorrow, and there's today. And if I go to a meeting today, I'm okay, you know. I can't worry about what happened yesterday. That's going in the past. You know what happens when I wake up tomorrow morning? When I wake up, it's no longer tomorrow, it's today. You know, so I just gotta worry about what goes on today. If I go to a meeting today, I'm gonna be okay, you know, so. All right, we're starting to run out of time, but we do give out chips in this meeting. And I understand Jeanette would like to do that for us this evening. Here you go.
South Florida has a chip system, poker chips, because they say you're gambling with your life.
Who are you? I'm sorry, I didn't.
You know who I am.
No, I know.
I'm Jeanette, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Jeanette.
Hi. And we don't have any white chips, so we give out silver chips.
Yeah, we got the silver 24-hour chips.
Would anybody like to pick up a 24-hour chip that hasn't had a drink for today, or anybody?
All right.
I know that. This is Rich, everybody.
Rich.
And then the next one is a red chip for 90 days.
All right, Teddy.
It's Teddy.
Teddy.
And then we have blue for 6 months. Why are they blue? Because you're supposed to have read the big book. The big book's blue. We got a real nifty metal one. It's not no cheap plastic. Anybody? And then purple for 9 months. And this one's metal too, because you get pieces of your car back. Keep coming back. 90 meetings in 90 days. Get a sponsor.
What about a year?
A year, you tell Bill, and he'll put your name in the book, and at the end of the
Well, yeah, what happens?
Yeah, I have a year today.
Oh, well, congratulations.
We might have something.
Yeah, I don't know if we have anything in here, but if you want to come back at the end of the month, because that's when we normally celebrate anniversaries, you know, what's your name? Brian. Okay, yeah, let us know, and at the end of the month, we'll get a medallion for you, and you can come up here and tell us how God kept you sober for the past year.
All right, congratulations anyway.
Yeah.
Now, when you have 10, I can hook you up on the spot, because we got that.
All right. Well, I guess we got most of the business stuff out of the way. So we can close the meeting the way we normally do with the Lord's Prayer. Okay, I'd just like to remind everybody that in the Stairways group, we don't say anything after we say amen. Who keeps us sober?